everybody. Good morning, Realtors. My name is Taylor Thompson. I'm the Government Affairs Director for the North San Diego County Realtors, and it is my absolute pleasure today to introduce to you our two panelists for this exciting webinar. First, we're going to be starting off with Peter Casey. He is a current and active FBI agent with almost 20 years experience, just 1 year away from what I see. He heads up or investigates computer crimes and cyber crimes, and he's going to be able to give us a wonderful top-down view from a federal level of any crime that may be impacting our industry and your clients. So his information is going to be crucial and invaluable to all of you today. But also from more of a local level, it's my pleasure to introduce Summer Stephan, our DA for the city of San Diego County, sorry about that, and her deputy DA here today. The DA's office is tasked with keeping our beautiful city of San Diego safe in all of our neighborhoods, and Summer has done an amazing job of that. So it's our pleasure to kick this off and welcome you to our cybersecurity webinar, and I'm going to hand it over to you, Summer. Have a great day.
Well, thank you so much, Taylor. And Taylor Thompson, as you all know, North Realtors is helping you have the premier organization that really has impact on our community. And I'm so proud to be here today and to continue the collaboration with the North San Diego County Realtors and to help bring forth this public safety topic that is really important, more important than ever now with all of the online abilities to fake and to simulate and to manipulate. So some of the traditional business practices that you have and have had are more and more at jeopardy because of all of the online transactions that we see. I'm also excited that because we do a lot of things in collaboration and working with our federal partners, that Special Agent Casey's here. One of our latest and greatest collaborations is in the Elder Justice Task Force that we formed recently, and it is to attack the elder fraud and all of the scams on seniors that of course include real estate fraud and scams. And that has been a great collaboration that's now being viewed as a national model on how you attack all of the scams on our elderly. And it started right here in San Diego and in the North County where the Carlsbad FBI office is. So it's very, very exciting. With me today is the Assistant Chief of our Economic Fraud Division, and that's exactly where we do the real estate fraud portion of our business, and that is Victor Barr. We're gonna split up the presentation where I just give you a little bit of a public safety overview, and then I'll turn it over because I wanted all of you to meet Victor, who is very accessible, which is one thing that we pride ourselves on, so that you have a face and a contact. Some of you also know Damon Mosler, our chief of the division, and he's been in our office for a long time, and they work together as a team, Victor and Damon. So this last year and a half, was a really challenging year for law enforcement. And you might have read in the paper that we battled every day to keep San Diego County the safest urban county in America. Still with our daily fight, we still saw crime inch up a little bit, but at a substantially lower rate than the rest of the nation saw. A smaller percentage, somewhere around 3%. But in my mind as DA, that is represents a victim of a crime, and that's not what we want. And we're now pushing back to turn back the clock on some of the things that had to be implemented during this last year, like the zero bail practices on some of the economic fraud cases and other cases, because they're just as important. prioritizing jail space for the violent and serious offenders. And that's understandable. But with that, we saw some of the fraudsters, the scammers, the thieves, be released and then perpetrate new crimes. But we're going to see that trend start to reverse in the next week. And we're hoping that will then get us back to the numbers where we were, and even lower those and drive those numbers down further. So that's one thing that I'm fighting for. We also saw pretty massive releases from the state prison that have impacted our local regions. Some of those releases from state prison, not some, but many, did not involve any plan, any real parole plan. So what ended up happening is we saw an addition to our homeless population, but of a really, not down on your luck type population that we all have compassion for, but more of a criminal element that's actually preying on other folks who are suffering from homelessness and preying on businesses and real estate, apartments, and community. And in this a few months ago, there was an announcement by the California Department of Corrections that they were going to release another 70,000 prisoners in the state early. And at this time, they announced that the release will involve a higher level of criminality, of violent criminals, serious criminals. And that's when my office decided that we would band together with 8 other offices, and we filed a lawsuit to put a stop to those releases. And knock on wood, we were successful. We're still litigating it in court, but for now, we were able to hold off the additional releases of the higher level violent offenders. What I'm giving you is just some examples of the battles that we fought for public safety during this time. Really proud of the 1,000-member team that I have that work for all of you, that serve the community. They were there. They were right next to victims of crime, supporting them, helping them relocate, find shelter, helping them recover when they've lost everything from violent or economic fraud. Now, serving 15,000 victims this last year. And now we also face a pretty tremendous backlog in our courts, but we are working through it, and jurors are showing up, and justice is returning to its beauty, which I love this justice system that we have. In the area of economic fraud, though, to tee it off for Victor, and we also saw that this was an opportunity for scammers. This was an opportunity people had moved closer to a senior, leaving their homes vacant, which allowed more fraud where somebody pretends to be the owner, gains title, begins to rent it, all sorts of different scams on the elderly where title is basically stolen right from under them, and it makes it look perfectly legal to untangle it. Takes a web of lies and a lot of investigation. And our federal partners do that heavy duty investigation, but also investigators, peace officers in our office trained in economic fraud and prosecutors do the criminal investigations. We try to have really easy access. So if some of you are not aware of this, we have a form that's very user-friendly that's on our website, sandiegoda.com, which is a real estate fraud form, RE form at stcda.org. We'll make sure that you all have that. So if you suspect fraud or your client has had fraud committed in real estate on them, that's the first place to start. And then you'll get a call back and we'll walk you through what the rest of the story will look like, and whether it arises to a criminal level. You'll be notified that your complaint was received, and then we'll go forward from there, working with our investigators and prosecutors. Real estate fraud is one of those things that is not like a robbery or a burglary. It's hard to report it to a police department, even though it's sometimes theft in the hundred thousands or millions of dollars. So that's why the best way to report it is to report it directly to our office. There obviously are federal partners if it has federal jurisdiction, or the Department of Real Estate that has their own investigators, and we work closely with them to work on cases. Some of the foreclosure type frauds also were of huge concern, and we were able to do several really good prosecutions. We also work closely with the assessor's office, where we get referrals when they see things that are out of the ordinary. And Assessor Donnerberg and Jordan Marks, they're excellent partners, and we cross-refer and talk to each other all the time. And that's been a really good way to interfere in fraud. I'm gonna stop here and turn it over to Victor to take you through some examples of the types of fraud that you may experience and how to handle it. Victor, thank you.
Thank you, Summer. So I'm going to share screen next. And share. Should come up. Did everybody see my screen? Yes, good. Thank you, Summer, very much. You teed it up just right. So I'm going to talk a few minutes on the types of fraud we're seeing out there, and red flags for you to be careful about, and what to do in the event of fraud. So to begin with, we'll talk about the current scams that are out there right now. They haven't changed completely over the years, but they've kind of morphed into more of a cyber kind of area. And I'm sure that's why Special Agent Casey is going to help educate you on the cyber issues. But the current scams continue to be our poor elders. We have a lot of elder real estate fraud still. Obviously, our elders are the ones that own the real estate, and after a lifetime of work, they're usually own it free and clear, and they make very vulnerable targets because as we advance in age, obviously our mental cognitive abilities decline. Some of them have dementia, some of them are easier to be tricked, and that's some place where you guys as realtors are valuable in trying to identify that type of a fraud that's out there. We also have a big uptick in identity theft associated with real estate fraud and equity fraud. And what I mean by that is because there's so much personal information out there about people that fraudsters can impersonate homeowners. They can apply for loans in their name. They can divert equity to themselves without the homeowner even knowing about it many times. So that is a common scheme out there, and we'll talk about how to prevent that. And also, we're seeing a big uptick in rental fraud, believe it or not. With the internet, a lot of people are renting properties directly over the internet, not even visiting a property before putting down a down payment, etc. And unfortunately, that's ripe for a fraudster who can pretend to own a property, has no ownership interest, doesn't even have access to the property, but tricks somebody into sending over money. And then when the poor tenant shows up to move in, the true owner says, "Who are you and why are you here?" And at that point, the poor tenant understands that they've been defrauded, but the fraudster has run into the darkness. So these are the most common ones we're seeing right now. And we turn to perpetrators. And this goes with all fraud. We have the wolf in the sheep's clothing. Unfortunately, the perpetrators are everybody. Unfortunately, relatives with their parents and grandparents, with caregivers, friends, and then with the identity theft out there, we're seeing lots of stranger perpetrators. And every once in a while, we will get a real estate professional who's involved in a fraud. Although I want to say, I think this particular community here in San Diego is outstanding, and it's pretty rare to see a real estate professional, but it does happen. And as Summer was talking about, I put up on the screen the link at our website that you can go to, and it's our public-facing website, and it's easy because it's preventing real estate fraud. And if you want a digital version of the complaint form, as Summer gave you the email, it's illustrated there below, the RE form. And this form will be sent to you or whoever is reporting the crime. It generates a bunch of questions, asks you to attach your documents, and then you send that back into the DA's office, and we take the investigation from there. So let's turn to, I only have a few more minutes left, so I'm going to turn directly to the red flags out there for all of you and prevention efforts. So the first red flag I want to turn to is the child brings in an elderly client to you as saying that they want to sell their home. It's a red flag. It doesn't mean that it's fraud, but it's a red flag. You should please test the elder client. They're your client. I'm not saying giving them a formal acuity test, but what I'm saying is talk to them, get to know them a little bit, find out why they want to sell their property. Do they understand what they're doing? Just make sure they're sound of mind. Do your best to protect our elders because they are a very vulnerable part of our society. Secondly, another red flag out there is a change in escrow wiring instructions. And I'm sure Special Agent Casey is going to cover this. We call this the business email compromise. And unfortunately, with the hacking out there and everything, these fraudsters find out about escrow transactions, and then they try and get in the middle of them. And they try and trick the person who's wiring the money to wire it from account A, where you were supposed to go, and they say, oh no, there's been a change, wire it to account B. And unfortunately, account B is controlled by the fraudster. So I'm sure changes do occur in escrow wiring instructions, but I'm sure they're pretty rare also. I would advise you to have your clients verify with you if there has been a change that you've been notified or they've been notified regarding their escrow wiring instructions. That way you can act as an inner person in between the transaction, and you can talk to the escrow company, somebody you trust over there, and verify that the change is legitimate. Because once they wire that money out, it's very likely gone. So we want to prevent this fraud from happening. And the other thing we suggest is use a different medium than how you were contacted. For example, if you get an email that says there has been a change in wiring instructions, don't email back because the fraudster probably controls that email. Instead, pick up the telephone and make the call to that trusted number and verify that the change is legitimate. And vice versa, if you get the phone call, verify with email. Next, it's a red flag if you never meet your client or the other side. I mean, right now, in COVID and everything else, everybody wants to do everything over the internet. Please do your best to verify that the client or the person is legitimate. And what I mean by that is we've had cases where people will pretend to be the owner because they have their personal identifying information. They will then do a fake deed and change the property into the new name. And then they will go ahead and sell the property with the owner not even knowing that there's been a false deed put on his property. So I would recommend, if you're a seller's agent, that you go ahead and if you're going to represent a party for a property, you should probably walk the property. That way you make sure that the guy who's advertising it actually has control of the property. Because we had one transaction, exactly that situation, where they did it all over the internet. And the only reason that there was a tip-off is that that particular buyer, he was going to buy the property sight unseen. He was going to buy the property, but he wanted a bigger property. So he wanted one of the neighboring properties. So the buyer, thankfully, contacted one of the neighbors of the true owner to say, hey, I want to buy your property in addition to this property that had been taken over. And that neighbor said, oh my gosh, I didn't know the true owner was selling. So the neighbor thankfully contacted the true owner, and then the whole thing unraveled because the true owner was able to figure it out. But had that not happened, could have had a big loss. Next thing is favors. Okay, there's always that person out there that says, "Hey, do me a favor, please. You know what? I'm just going to sign for mom because mom wants to sell. It's no big deal. Trust me, you know me." That's a red flag. Trust me, mom wants to sell the property. You never even meet mom. Red flag. A notary. If you're a notary out there and somebody says, "Oh, trust me, just go ahead and notarize this. I'll bring in the license and everything later." These are the types of things that get people in trouble. And just remember, you're not being mean by following the book. You're following the book for a reason. You're following a book to make sure that everything goes through ethically and professionally. And I do realize there's a tug, time and transactions and money. The more transactions you can do, the faster you can do them, the more money you can make. But we want to do them right, and we want to protect especially our elders out there. Next, on rental units, that amazing price, act now or you're going to lose it. And these are the tools of the fraudster. It's too good to be true, and you got to act now or you lose it. So what happens is people panic and they don't think, and they want to get that great deal. So these are red flags out there. I'm not saying a good deal is always fraud. I'm not saying act fast is always fraud, but it's a red flag. So please make sure that the landlord that's advertising the unit has access to the unit, walk it. Try to avoid that full internet exchange, because anonymity is the fraudster's friend. And if you are able to identify them, it would later help us prosecute a case. Last 2 points before I turn it over. Number one, please harden your operation. I'm sure Special Agent Casey is going to go into this in detail. We highly recommend two-factor authentication for your email system, which is the most vulnerable part of your whole network. And I'm sure Special Agent Casey will go into details on that. And then last but not least, and probably the best part of this whole presentation, remember that property where the owner never knew something was recorded and it was taken out from under him. You can protect yourself from that kind of a theft. Number one, you can do it like I do it. You can check on the county recorder's website online, your property. You don't even have to leave your house. You can just check online and you can see if anything has been recorded on your property. And I recommend you run that at least twice a year. I just pick a special date. I'm not going to tell you what date it is because I'm here being tape recorded, but I pick a certain date twice a year, and I run my property to see if anything's been filed. And number two, even better, I got to thank our county recorder's office here in San Diego. They're progressive. They're trying to protect our citizens. They actually set up a new email notification system, and I have it here on the slide. So you go to the county recorder's website, you go to the services section, and you can sign up for recording notification service. And what that does is they put a little flag on your property. So if something gets recorded, you get an email sent to you, which is amazing. And it protects you from that fraud that you don't even contemplate out there, where somebody just pretends to be you, takes your property, or gets loans in your name, and you don't even know about it. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Special Agent Peter Casey. And I think I've stopped sharing here.
All right. Thank you, Deputy DA Barr, and thank you to the DA as well. Let me share my screen, and hopefully we can get this going. And all right. Thank you for coming today. I'm going to go over a lot of things that if you joined us last year, I gave a similar speech about what we're seeing in the cyber realm. But I do that on purpose. And I know that Deputy DA Barr, he also brought up some of the things I'm going to be talking about, but it's always good. It's always good to really drill it into everyone's head that things like business email compromise and ransomware, they're not going away. And it's best is education is the best, is our first and foremost way to mitigate what might happen. So today, let's see, there we go. I only have a few minutes with you guys, so I'm going to try to pack a whole lot of information in the next couple of minutes. Don't worry though, don't worry about taking notes. Just sit back and try to relax while I fearmonger a little bit. I'll send out an email to Shirley to send out to everyone that's here today with links to where I got a lot of my information on the different government websites and local websites, that I know that these links are constantly updated. So I don't want you to take this information and then it's old by tomorrow. So I want you to always have the most up-to-date information. So I'll provide that to you afterwards. So I just want to talk about go over a little bit who the US government is and what our cybersecurity responsibilities are. Just because a lot of things are just out there. It's the miracle that happens, that you just trust something's going to get done. I'm going to tell you why things get done. We're going to go into who's going to do the hacking, how you're being targeted. And then I want to go through just a couple quick, easy tips of email security and physical security for when you're actually out on home sites or dealing with new clients. And then I'll touch on very quickly on what the FBI can bring to you and different opportunities that you can work with the FBI. Cybercrime is our number 3 priority, but that doesn't mean that cybercrime isn't infused into every single priority we work. It's in terrorism, it's in counterintelligence, it's in organized crime. With the FBI, we have 56 field offices across the US, and we have 63 legats worldwide that we are able to investigate any crimes that happen to any US citizen or US entity or a US business. So we're there, we are global, that we can help as fast as possible. Every field office, including San Diego, has at least one cyber squad. San Diego, we have 2. We have cyber national security, which is the squad that I work on, and the cyber criminal, which deal mostly with financial crimes. But getting back to how the government works together and where the FBI and the DOJ actually fit in with it. So the DOJ and the FBI, we are in charge of investigating and prosecuting any crimes that happen. The Department of Homeland Security, they're in charge of fortifying our infrastructure. And then the Department of Defense and NSA, they're the ones that can go beyond our borders to help protect the US. If you think of the government as a bank, the DHS, they're in charge of building that bank, making sure the vaults work, training up the employees. DOJ, FBI, we're in charge of going in and investigating who might have robbed said bank. If that person that robbed the bank is working for some other foreign government, that's when DOD and NSA step in. That's a very simplified view, but it's just, we share information between all these different partners to make sure. So who's going to be doing the hacking? So we have a continuum. We look at this as a continuum. There's hacktivism, which is basically like anonymous, that group that wants to make sure that all of the internet is free and for everyone to use. So they're going to attack anybody that can be seen as censoring the internet. So that'd be any company, any government, that's who they're going to go after. And then we can run all the way down to espionage, terrorism, warfare, which those are nation state actors coming because they want to ruin our free society's way of life. But what I'm going to focus on are those middle 2, that light green and the yellow, the crime, the financially motivated crimes, and the insider threats. So the insider threats are like what Deputy DA Barr talked about. Those are those people, that the relatives, the caregivers, the friends, strangers, the God forbid, the real estate professionals who might have, they have knowledge and inner working of what's happening in your business or in your client's business and real estate matters. And they're going to try to get something out of that. And they're probably going to use some sort of financial crime to do it, much like what the Deputy DA talked about. Speaking basically cyber, computer-enabled crimes, this is some stats from our Internet Crime Complaint Center 2020 report. So I know we're almost done with 2021. The new 2021 report will probably be out in February or March. So we'll be able to update these numbers for you. But I wanted to point out that business email compromise, which is the top left of that graphic, $1.86 billion reported last year. So that is the caveat to, or the little asterisk for all these stats that I'm going to give you, is that these are numbers that are reported. A lot of things go unreported. So business email compromise, huge money loss. There's real estate and rental fraud. There's 213 million that was reported in 2020. The one thing you don't see here is ransomware, which I'll get into, because ransomware is one of those endemic problems that people tend to just pay it and move on, and they don't report it, and I'll get into that. So let's talk about BEC, business email compromise, and or email account compromise. As Deputy DA talked about, it's basically just someone finds out information that is important to you, and they will use that information to try to get money out of you. So these financial criminals they're perusing everything that is free online. They're looking at LinkedIn to find out who works in your real estate company. They're looking at Facebook. They're looking at Instagram. They're looking at every other Snapchat, whatever is out there. They're going to look and try to find certain bits of information to personalize an email to either the client or to you. And it's so easy because everyone has on their websites or on their business cards, they have all the logos, they have all the information that they really need to make it seem like a real email. They'll send it out, and with the wire fraud aspect, they'll just change a plan. Here's a different account number. Can you please use this SWIFT number to change it? And then boom, your money's gone. The reason why I keep talking about this is because it keeps happening. It's a problem that we need to know that it's there, so that we know that if you get that little feeling in your stomach, or if something doesn't quite look right, always pick up that phone and call the person and hear their voice and say, like, you just changed this. Are you sure you want me to change this number? You want to send it to a different account? Because as previously mentioned, sometimes that's true. Sometimes it does happen. That person should thank you for double checking. They shouldn't say, no, where's my money? So that's a big problem. Here in San Diego, we get a phone call. We get at least 10 victims a week that are falling prey for this. And that's just someone that's actually calling in. We also get Internet Crime Complaint Center, where it's getting to the point where it's a lot of work for us. The average amounts that we're seeing that are getting lost is 250,000 to 3 million a week that we're seeing. If you do find that you have been a victim of wire fraud, here's a couple steps that you need to do. Report it to your bank and immediately, and ask for a swift recall. And hopefully the bank will be able to pull that money back, hopefully. Then report the incident to ic3.gov. That's an Internet Crime Complaint Center. That's the FBI's clearinghouse for computer-enabled crimes. Doing that will trigger what's called a financial kill chain. And there's some certain miracles that happen that I can't exactly go into. But if you are able to catch that you are missing the money, it's over a $25,000 threshold, and it's within 72 hours of it going missing, there's a chance that we'd be able to get that money back. And that's an automated process. And then contact your local FBI office so we can hit the ground running and make sure we can do as much as possible to get your money back. Now, nothing is ever guaranteed that you'll get your money back, but just know that there's a chance we'd be able to get your money back. And so that's what I'm trying to enforce here. Next, I want to talk about ransomware. This is something that it is the common cold now in the computer and the IT industry. It really does seem at this point, it's not a matter of if you get hit, it's a matter of when you get hit. So what ransomware is, if you've been living under a rock since 1989, when the first ransomware popped up, it's basically someone drops a bit of software on your computer, it locks down your computer, it encrypts your networks or your hard drive and says, pay this amount of Bitcoin or pay this amount of Monero, and we'll release your funds, we'll release your information back to you. We'll give you the decryption keys. That's what it used to be. It does seem to be more targeted and more, they know what they're doing more, because I don't know how much of the screen you can see on your computers at home, or if you're doing this on the phone. So when you get the payment screen, the pop-up, if you were hit by ransomware, it's going to say like, we want this amount of money by this time in Bitcoin. Oh, you don't know what Bitcoin is? This is what Bitcoin is. Do you have an account? If you don't have an account, here's how you make an account. If all this is too confusing for you, here's a 1-800 number for you to call, and we can walk you through this. Ransomware truly is a business. In fact, the Rebel, the Russian software hacking group, Rebel, or the Conti software, the malware, or the different malwares that hit the Colonial Pipeline or Scripps here in San Diego. These were malwares that isn't just locking down the system. These guys go in and it's like a three-pronged attack. They hack into the system, whether using credentials that were purchased in the dark market, or blunt force, or people using simple passwords like password, which to this day it happens. They go in, they get into the system, they map your network, they pull down any information that is important, and they exfiltrate that and they keep that. Then they're going to launch that ransomware bomb and say, pay your money, so you can get your computers back. But now they're taking a step further that, oh, if you don't pay the money, you're just going to use your backups. Well, here, we're going to release all this information online, and we want you to pay up, because we're going to release all this PII of this, or intellectual property, and that's going to be a big hit to your reputation. And now let's say if it's just some guy that runs a t-shirt shop down in PB, and he's like, I don't really have an online presence. I don't care. I'm just going to restart my computer and I'll be done with it. Well, then they're going to use a phone denial of service attack, and they'll take away either your phone lines or your online store. So they're really doing everything to bring you to the table to pay this. In the long run, the US government, we do not encourage people to pay the ransomware. It is a business decision, but we can't tell you not to pay it, because you don't know if you're actually going to get your information back. Colonial Pipeline, they actually ended up paying the money to the guys, but the decryption software that the bad guys sent back to them was too slow. So they still end up using their backups to bring themselves back online. So there's that. You don't know if the integrity of your data that you get back is true and proper. They might have left all sorts of different types of malware, like keyloggers, or just a backdoor into your system. So the best way to not become a victim is to have very good cyber hygiene. Back up your systems and make sure those backups work. Have a continuing business continuity plan, so you know how to keep your company running if your computers get locked down. Make sure you back up all your software. Make sure you update and patch your software and your hard drives and everything. And just make sure that you are extra careful, and this goes with it for business email compromise as well, that the emails you're getting, make sure that you only click on links from reputable and recognized institutions. What happens if you do become a victim of ransomware? I'll throw this slide up there, and I'll send this information out as well. We don't promote these companies, but I want to let you know that this information is out there, that they might have decryption keys for you to unlock your software, unlock your networks. So that might be out there. But we ask that if you find that you are a victim, remove that computer, remove the section of your networks from continuing the malware to that spread, remove them from, to isolate them, I should say. Let the FBI, call the FBI immediately, or call the Secret Service immediately. We might have the decryption keys. We might be able to help you work through it. Next, I want to go, because I know that my time is running out, and we want to please put any questions you have up in the chat, and we'll get through them at the end. So let me first touch on email security. Again, this is just the basics of what you should be doing. You should do this every day and practice it every day. Don't simply just trust a name on an email. You can spoof someone's name that's sending an email. You can spoof a company pretty easily. If you receive a suspicious email with a link, always call it, use an outside band. Like Deputy DA said, if you receive an email, call them on the phone. If you receive a social engineering type phone call, email the people that you know. Use a link that you know. Focus on awareness and training. Make sure that you, your clients, and anyone that works with you know that business email compromise is a thing, know that ransomware is a thing, and don't be so trusting on things you get through the internet. Something that probably falls quite easily, because I know that in the real estate industry, the DocuSigns are thrown here and there. I know I just refinanced my mortgage, and everything that I have to DocuSign, it makes my hair stand on end, but I do it because it's what the industry says we need to do. But to make things easier in your personal life, disable macro scripts in the Office files that are transmitted, because that's a way that a malware can get into your system. Check misspellings and wrong domains within a link. If the FBI or the IRS sends you an email, it's always going to be from .gov. It will never be from .com or .org. Also, look at the spellings of the websites that might be contained within a link or in an email. The example here, Capital One versus Capital One, it's just fun with fonts. So you have a 0 or you have an O, which is it? So the bad guys use this type of ways to mess with you all the time. And also the lock icon and HTTPS, it's important to look for to make sure it's there. But if it's from a website that you aren't sure of, I would not trust it. I would try to figure out some other way to get that information that you're looking for. And, oh geez, I'm coming up on my time. So I wanted to go into physical security, which is an important thing, because we can keep your computers all protected, but what's important is that you go home at the end of the night. So let's jump through a bunch of these things. If you're meeting new clients, make sure you get some sort of identification from them, so that that you know who they are. You can verify who they are. Don't let your clients show properties by themselves, because there's a lot of people that say they're real estate agents, but they might be just looking for a way to get into someone's house, so they can either case the place and steal whatever's inside there, or do worse. Drive yourself to properties and meet your clients there, so that you always have an escape route. And then when it comes to the properties, when you first arrive on a scene, just look around you, make sure that the physicality of everything, look for them where there might be hiding spaces, make sure that if you pull into a driveway, make sure that you can't be blocked into the driveway. If you try not to show houses in the dark, but if you have to, tell someone that you are doing this, and then turn on every single light and open up every blind so that neighbors can actually see you. And speaking of neighbors, if you are working on a house that might take some time to sell, it doesn't hurt to go and meet the neighbors just so that they know that you will be in the area, they recognize your car, and that's kind of like a neighborhood watch that will be a third or fourth layer of security for you as you go through this. Let's just jump down to communication, because that's a big thing. Don't be too public with the information that you share with people, either online or when you're meeting with them, either at a house or in your office. Just limit the amount of personal information you share. If you are going out to a site, make sure you tell someone that you're doing so, whether it's a loved one, a colleague, your boss, whoever. Let them know that you plan on going there and coming back at a certain time, so that people have an idea of where you might be. At some of these new houses, make sure that there's self-service. And make sure you know where the self-services are within so there's no dead spots within the property, just in case you need some emergency. And then lastly, it's always good to learn some self-defense, tactics. But if you have a choice to fight or flight, choose flight. The house will be fine. You want to protect yourself. That's really what it comes down to. And I know that I'm really have come up against the time. I want to get to questions. So one of the big things that I like coming out and doing these types of talks and doing these talks online is the fact that you can see my face. You see that I am an agent. I work in your community. I live in your community. So we're working together to keep everyone safe. If you want to have a meeting with an FBI agent or just to know how we work, we are always available to work through things. And it's good to know that we're not just a big black box on a hill, that we're the government, we're here to help. I mean, we are, but we're more than what the movies tell you we are. With that, I'll jump to the questions. I know I've rushed through things, and I will send a lot more information out at the end, either later today or tomorrow. And so I think we can jump into the questions. I don't know if Victor, if you'd like to, I can read questions out to you if you'd like, if they're to you.
I answered the few questions that were at the beginning about the county recorder's website, which it is difficult to navigate. And I think somebody finally was able to get the link up there. I put a link up there too.
Okay.
I don't see any other questions.
Yeah.
Victor, I see a question about our referral form, and or maybe it is about the recorder's website, but hopefully they can find our referral form at sandiegoda.com.
What I'll do is I'll put that link up right now, Summer, on the chat.
Okay,
And
that would be great.
And to Lori Wayne, you asked, will we be able to receive the presentation slides and all the links and contact info from everyone presented today? Speaking on behalf of the FBI, I'm not going to send out the actual PowerPoint to you guys, but I will send out an email after the fact with links that constantly update, that will have the most up-to-date information for you. That will also include my contact information.
And Victor, I'm not sure, it's up to you.
I think I sent it out to everybody. Can you see that one? Let's see here. Oh, there it is. Okay.
Well, maybe everybody's hungry, and you guys did such a magnificent job that you answered all the questions.
That's Did the website address come out? I'm sorry, Summer, I'm just not so good with the questions here. My
Oh,
bad.
that's okay. I can
See if I can answer.
type it. I think it's over here. Yeah, I'll do it.
All right, here's a question, another question from Lori Wayne. Is there a particular line of questions that we can use to vet persons who present as a POA on a property? I'm not exactly sure what POA stands for.
Yeah, that'd be a power of attorney. So
Okay.
they want to know if the person has a valid power of attorney. I guess I would want, I'd want to question the individual who's representing to have the power of attorney. I'd want to see a copy of the power of attorney. I would assume you would want to put it in your file. I would also I would definitely talk to the elder and see if they know that there's a power of attorney. They might not if they're suffering from severe dementia, but I would take those steps, and then at least you have the written documentation of the POA. So if later on there's a question of whether you fraudulently participated in a transaction or not, you would at least have that documentation for us to look at. So those are the types of things I would do. Okay.
Guess I don't know if anyone wants to answer that question. Why is the governor releasing more prisoners?
Yeah, I don't know the answer. Jails and prisons are considered congregate environments, so we were hearing that it's because of space and room, but of course, as we were looking at violent and serious offenders, that must be balanced with public safety, so it was a huge concern for us.
There's a question there, Summer, about
Sex
San Diego.
offenders?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's not that, the answer is it's not that San Diego is receiving more sexually violent predators than most areas, but that the decision that I made a long time ago, before I became the DA and I was the chief of the sex crimes division, is that notification to the public of sexually violent predators had to happen, and so that our region complies fully with the notifications to the community. And so it feels like there are more releases, but it's because we believe that it's really important to make sure the community gets notification so that their voice can be heard. So it feels like it's happening all the time, but it's because we are very strictly, along with the Safe Task Force, complying with what I believe is a duty to notify the community under the law.
I see there's another question there about, are we seeing more elderly fraud in the Hero and Pace loan area? And I could probably speak to that one. The answer quite clearly is yes. Unfortunately, I think the programs initially had a good intent. We have seen quite a bit of abuse in that area. We are seeing it with the elders. People will come to their front door and say, hey, we can do these remodels to your house. It won't cost you anything. You just tack it on to your property tax bill at the end of the year. And we have seen abuse in that area. Some of it has been misleading. Some of it, the unscrupulous contractors will actually take the personal identifying information of the elder and apply for loans that the construction never occurred. So yes, to answer your question, we've seen it, and it's very unfortunate. And I see somebody commented that title companies can verify the POA, which I appreciate. I didn't know that. But that's good information from the group, for the group. Anything else out there?
It doesn't look like there's any more questions in the chat. So Special Agent Peter Casey and Deputy DA Victor Barr and District Attorney Summer Stephen, we really, really appreciate the presentation. There was a lot of great information, and we thank each one of you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Shirley. Great job
You're welcome.
organizing. Thanks, Taylor. And
All
thanks,
right. Thanks,
everybody. Talk to
everyone.
you later.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Stay safe.